The reign of Pharaoh Intef III, a journey through time. In the heart of ancient Egypt, amidst the arid sands and the eternal flow of the Nile, there rose a pharaoh whose legacy, though not as grand as some of his predecessors or successors, played a crucial role in shaping the future of the 11th dynasty. This is the story of Pharaoh Intef III, ruler whose reign, though brief, was marked by consolidation, ambition, and the steady march toward unity in a divided land. A fragmented Egypt. Before diving into the life and reign of Intef III, it is essential to understand the world he was born into. Egypt, at the time of Intef's ascension, was not the unified, powerful kingdom that we often imagine. The glory of the Old Kingdom, with its grand pyramids and centralized rule, had long since faded. The country was fractured, with multiple rulers claiming kingship, each wielding influence over different regions. The 11th dynasty, to which Intef III belonged, was based in Thebes, a city in Upper Egypt. This dynasty had been working for generations to assert its authority over a fragmented Egypt, often clashing with the 10th dynasty rulers based in Heracleopolis, who controlled much of Lower Egypt. The tension between these two dynasties was not just a struggle for power but a clash of visions for Egypt's future. The kings of Heracleopolis sought to maintain their dominance over the rich Delta region, while the Theban rulers, including Intef III's predecessors, dreamt of a unified Egypt under their control. Imagine, if you will, a land divided not only by geography but by ideology, culture, and ambition. The stark contrast between the verdant, fertile lands of the north and the rugged, more austere south symbolized the broader division within the kingdom. Each region had its own traditions, gods, and ways of life, and bridging this divide required more than just military might. It required a deep understanding of the people and the land. Intef III's father, Mentuhotep I, and his grandfather, Intef II, had made significant strides in expanding Theban influence, but the dream of a united Egypt was still distant. The stage was set for Intef III to continue this mission, though history would later reveal that the full realization of this goal would come under his successor. But to dismiss Intef III as merely a prelude to greater things would be a disservice to the man who laid the groundwork for one of Egypt's most significant periods of resurgence, the ascension of Intef III. The exact details of Intef III's early life remain shrouded in mystery, as with many figures from ancient Egypt. Born into the royal family of Thebes, he would have been raised in the shadow of his father and grandfather's ambitions. Thebes, though not as ancient as Memphis or as rich as Heracleopolis, was a city of growing importance. It was here, amidst the temples and the banks of the Nile, that Intef III would have learned the ways of kingship, the rituals of the gods, and the intricacies of war and diplomacy. Picture young Intef as a child, wandering through the bustling streets of Thebes, where merchants from distant lands bartered exotic goods, priests performed sacred rituals in the towering temples, and the majestic Nile flowed with life-giving water. His education would have been both rigorous and expansive, encompassing everything from the art of governance to the sacred mysteries of the gods. Every lesson, every story told by the elders, would have impressed upon him the weight of his future responsibilities. Upon the death of his father, Mentuhotep I, Intef III ascended to the throne. His reign is believed to have begun around 2069 before the Common Era, though the exact date is a matter of scholarly debate. Unlike his predecessors, Intef III did not rush into battle against the rulers of Heracleopolis. Instead, he focused on solidifying his control over Upper Egypt, strengthening Thebes as a political and religious center. This decision speaks volumes about Intef III's character. He was not a ruler driven by reckless ambition, but one who understood the value of patience and strategy. His goal was not just to expand his territory, but to build a kingdom that would endure. In a time when power was often won and lost on the battlefield, Intef III chose a different path, one of careful preparation and calculated moves. A builder and a believer. One of the key aspects of Intef III's reign was his dedication to building projects and religious devotion. The pharaohs of ancient Egypt were seen not just as kings but as living gods, intermediaries between the divine and the mortal realms. To honor the gods and legitimize his rule, Intef III commissioned the construction of temples and monuments. The most notable of these projects was his mortuary temple, a precursor to the grander structures built by his successors. Located on the west bank of the Nile, near the city of Thebes, this temple was a place of worship and a site where his cult would be venerated after his death. The temple, though modest compared to later structures, reflected Intef III's piety and his desire to leave a lasting legacy. Imagine the construction of this temple. The sound of chisels against stone, the sight of workers toiling under the hot sun, and the prayers of priests rising to the heavens as the structure slowly took shape. Each stone, each column, was not just a testament to Intef III's devotion, but a statement of his intent to be remembered for eternity. In addition to his building projects, Intef III was also a patron of the arts. The period of his reign saw the flourishing of literature, with hymns, prayers, and wisdom texts being composed and inscribed. These works, often dedicated to the gods, also served to reinforce the divine nature of the pharaoh's rule. The literature of this period offers us a glimpse into the spiritual and intellectual life of ancient Egypt. It was a time when the written word was revered, not just as a means of communication, but as a vehicle for conveying the deepest truths about life, death, and the divine. Intef III's patronage of the arts ensured that his reign would be remembered not just for its political achievements, but for its contributions to the cultural and spiritual life of the nation. Diplomacy and warfare. While Intef III was a builder and a believer, he was also a strategist. The political landscape of Egypt during his reign was complex, with multiple claimants to the throne and regional rulers vying for power. Intef III recognized that to achieve his dynasty's ultimate goal of unifying Egypt, he would need to be both a diplomat and a warrior. Rather than launching an all-out assault on Heracleopolis, Intef III focused on consolidating his power in Upper Egypt. He strengthened alliances with local nomarchs, regional governors, and used marriage ties to secure loyalty. It is believed that his marriage to Ea, who was possibly of noble birth, helped to strengthen his position. Picture the negotiations that would have taken place, the delicate dance of power and diplomacy as Intef III worked to secure the loyalty of the nomarchs. These men were not mere subjects. They were powerful rulers in their own right, each with their own ambitions and agendas. Intef III's success in winning their support speaks to his skill as a negotiator and his ability to inspire loyalty in others. However, Intef III was not averse to using force when necessary. There are records of skirmishes and battles during his reign, though these were likely smaller in scale compared to the full-scale wars that would come later. These conflicts were part of a broader strategy to weaken the influence of the Heracleopolitan kings and to prepare the way for future campaigns. Imagine the tension in the air as Intef III's soldiers marched into battle, their armor gleaming in the sun, their weapons ready to strike. These were not just ordinary conflicts. They were battles fought for the soul of Egypt, for the dream of a unified kingdom under a single, divinely appointed ruler. A time of peace and preparation. Despite the ongoing tensions between Thebes and Heracleopolis, Intef III's reign is often characterized as a time of relative peace in Upper Egypt. This period of stability allowed him to focus on internal matters, such as the economy and the administration of his kingdom. The Nile, as always, was the lifeblood of Egypt, and ensuring the prosperity of the land was crucial for maintaining the support of the people. During this time, Intef III would have overseen the management of the Nile's inundation, ensuring that the river's waters were distributed fairly among the fields, and that the granaries were filled with enough grain to sustain the population. The prosperity of the land was not just a matter of economic stability, it was a reflection of the pharaoh's favor with the gods. A bountiful harvest was seen as a sign that the gods were pleased with the ruler, while a poor harvest could be interpreted as a sign of divine displeasure. Intef III's reign also saw the continued development of Thebes as a cultural and religious center. The city's temples, particularly those dedicated to the god Ammonius, grew in importance. Ammonius, who would later become the chief deity of the Egyptian pantheon, was still a relatively minor god during Intef III's time. However, the pharaoh's patronage of Ammonius' cult helped to elevate the god's status, laying the groundwork for Thebes' future as the religious heart of Egypt. Imagine the sacred rituals that would have taken place in the temples of Thebes, the incense rising to the heavens, the chants of the priests echoing through the halls, and the offerings laid before the statues of the gods. These rituals were not just acts of devotion. They were a means of maintaining the cosmic order, of ensuring that the gods would continue to bless the land and its people. The legacy of Intef III. Intef III's reign lasted for approximately 8 years, a relatively short period by the standards of Egyptian kingship. Yet, in that time, he laid the foundations for the unification of Egypt, a task that would be completed by his successor, Mentuhotep. Intef III's legacy is often overshadowed by the achievements of Mentuhotep, who is credited with reuniting Egypt and establishing the Middle Kingdom, one of the most prosperous periods in the country's history. However, it is important to recognize that without Intef III's efforts to consolidate power, stabilize Thebes, and prepare the way, the unification of Egypt might have been delayed or taken a different course. His reign was a crucial stepping stone, a time of preparation that set the stage for the achievements to come. Intef III's legacy is not just one of political achievement, but of cultural and religious advancement. The temples he built, the literature he patronized, and the alliances he forged all contributed to the flourishing of Theban culture, which would later become the foundation of the Middle Kingdom's Golden Age. Anecdotes and speculations. The reign of Intef III, like much of ancient Egyptian history, is a mix of fact, speculation, and legend. The lack of extensive contemporary records means that much of what we know is pieced together from later sources, archaeological findings, and the interpretations of historians. One story that has persisted is that of a dream Intef III supposedly had, in which the god Ammonius appeared to him, promising that his dynasty would rule over a united Egypt. Whether this dream was real or a later invention to legitimize the rule of his successors, it reflects the belief in divine intervention in the affairs of the pharaohs. Imagine Intef III, deep in slumber, when suddenly he finds himself standing before the mighty god Ammonius, who speaks to him with a voice like thunder, promising that his lineage would bring unity to the land. This dream, whether real or imagined, would have filled Intef III with a sense of destiny, a conviction that he was chosen by the gods to lay the groundwork for Egypt's future greatness. There is also speculation about the nature of Intef III's relationship with the local nomarchs. Some historians believe that his reign was marked by a delicate balance of power, with the pharaoh needing to constantly negotiate and assert his authority over these regional governors. This would explain the relative peace of his reign, as Intef may III have preferred diplomacy over direct confrontation. Imagine the careful balancing act that Intef III would have had to perform, keeping the powerful nomarchs on his side, while also asserting his authority as pharaoh. This delicate dance would have required not just political acumen, but also a deep understanding of human nature, of what motivated these men and how to keep them loyal. The passing of a pharaoh. The death of Intef III marked the end of an era of consolidation and the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the 11th dynasty. His son, Mentuhotep, would go on to achieve the dream of a united Egypt, but the seeds of that success were planted during the reign of Intef III. Intef III was buried in his mortuary temple near Thebes, where his cult would continue to be venerated by his successors. Though his reign was not marked by grand conquests or monumental achievements, his legacy is one of quiet determination, strategic foresight, and unwavering devotion to the gods. As the priests laid his body to rest, the people of Thebes would have mourned the passing of their king, their living god. But even as they grieved, there would have been a sense of hope, a belief that the work Intef III had begun would be carried forward by his successors. His name would be inscribed in the annals of history, not just as a king, but as a man who prepared the way for the unification of Egypt. Conclusion. The story of Pharaoh Intef III is a testament to the complexities of leadership in a time of division. His reign may not have been the most dramatic or the most celebrated, but it was essential in the broader narrative of the 11th dynasty and the eventual rise of the Middle Kingdom. As we reflect on the life and reign of Intef III, we see a ruler who understood the importance of patience, strategy, and the careful cultivation of power. His legacy lives on not only in the temples and monuments he built, but also in the history that followed, a history shaped by the foundations he laid during his brief but significant time on the throne. In the end, Intef III's story is one of hope and perseverance, a reminder that even in the most challenging times, the seeds of future greatness can be sown with careful planning and unwavering dedication. And in the timeless sands of Egypt, his name continues to echo, a testament to a pharaoh who, though not the most famous, was undoubtedly one of the most important in the journey toward the unification of ancient Egypt.